Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And today I have Debra Kasowsk E with me. And Debra is the host of the Millionaire Woman Show. Anyone is welcome. It's not geared towards women. And she has a book coming out in, I believe, September. So we're not only going to talk about her podcast, but we're going to talk about her book. So without further ado, I'm going to Deb. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been a pure delight, and I've had Win on my show as well, so I'm grateful to be here. Thanks so much.
And I forgot to mention, Deb is a second-time guest of my show, but that archive is hanging out on blogtalk.com if you guys want to go check that out as well. So I have a question for you, Deb. Why and how did you get the idea for your podcast?
Well, several years ago, I ran a networking group called the Millionaire Woman Club, and it was geared toward empowering women in leadership and business to grow. And along the way, I did that for about 3 years, and it wasn't growing in the same way that I wanted it to. And I lost a little bit of steam along the way. So what I decided to do was step back from it and just hone some of the skills that I have in coaching and training. And then people kept saying, Deb, you need to bring back the Millionaire Woman. You still are the Millionaire Woman. And I kept thinking about it because it was a strong brand. And I thought, well, if I bring it back, I'm not going to bring it back in the form of a networking group. So it came back in the form of the podcast. So I call it the Millionaire Woman Show. It has a play on words specifically to what we do talk about is we discuss principles of leadership, business, and human potential, so that personal development piece. But we help use those principles to help you live rich from the inside out. And this is for men and women. And so I wanted to grab people's attention from that millionaire woman, but it's about being that richness from the inside out. Again, with those principles of leadership, business, and human potential that help us step into that potential that we're meant to be in.
Exactly. And so I'm going to ask you the favorite child question. What has been your favorite interview you have done?
Wow. I am so excited. I learned something from every single guest that I have on my show, including you, when you've taught me a lot, just in the fact that when we were talking about triathlons, and that is something special to me. So it was really nice to have something that we really connected on. I've interviewed people like Bob Berg and Dr. Mark Golston, and I think Dr. Mark Golston was one of my first interviews for the Millionaire Woman podcast, but I had blogged about him, and he had reached out to me to ask if there was anything he could also do to showcase my work. And I was just so impressed with that because we are really in a place that we can collaborate with so many individuals to showcase their skills and abilities. And Dr. Mark Golston has a book called Just Listen. And his book, Just Listen, had a profound impact on me because I was listening to it on audio, actually, and he was talking about a CEO who had trouble communicating with his teenager, with his boardroom, and he just gave him very simple techniques to really shift the conversation so that they can have the courage to be vulnerable and really meet people where they're at in conversation. And I think it's so important that we think that we're listening, but there's a deeper part to listening. So I think I've learned so much from each guest, but he by far really resonated with me because his book had such an impact on me. And he is actually writing the foreword for my book, Let's Be Curious. So I'm really excited to share that with you.
And let's talk about that book. Why did you stem off the podcast to writing the book, Let's Be Curious?
Well, one of the things is, like, I have 2 other books that are bestsellers on Amazon. One was co-authored with Charmaine Hammond, and it's called GPS Your Best Life. The second book was about the entrepreneurial mom, growing a business, raising a family, and creating a life you love. And then, you know, people would say, Deb, whenever you ask me questions, you really make me think. But what I was noticing is that there was many people around me that were getting frustrated with the answers, not being able to make decisions as decisively as they'd like to, because they were asking face value questions. So what I want to help people do is, if I can help facilitate and make people think, I could write a book that helps them pose their questions or think about the questions they ask, so that they can phrase them, so that they can position them, that they're getting the answers that they need to get to make those decisions, to get the results that they actually want in their lives, whether it be in business, whether it be growing in an organization, and it might even just be amongst family members and friends. It's about being able to articulate and communicate what your needs are and what you're trying to find out, that little investigative part that gets you all excited.
I definitely agree. And will the book be out on Amazon? I know your podcast is on iTunes, and I believe it's on the Endline side, but I'm curious, will the book be out on Amazon Canada?
Absolutely. It's going to be on Amazon. I'm going to get it on the U.S. page as well, is my hope. Get it in ebook form. It's at the editors right now. So it is coming out for September. It is in pre-launch mode. So I do have a special deal out there. If people are interested, they can go to www.letsbecurious.ca, and you can pre-order your copy so you don't miss out on the rush. So it is available in pre-launch. I will be sending it out in September to everyone who purchases their book. It's $15 right now. The price will go up in September.
Well, everyone should probably purchase this book because of what Deb says on the podcast. Let's be curious. Let's ask the right questions. Now you do something very unique with your podcast. One day a week, you have a guest on a Tuesday, like myself. The other day, you have, I guess you would call it what? Minute lessons, I guess? I'm trying to figure that one out. And why did you decide to do that with your podcast?
So phase 1 of the podcast was just building the platform of sharing my knowledge, building that credibility so people could get to know, like, and trust the information I was sharing. Phase 2 was about starting to interview guests and share and have those conversations with them that I could bring extra value to my listeners, but also being able to still showcase my knowledge at the same time and deliver on that value. So what happens is on Mondays on Facebook Live, I do what we call Mastery Mondays. It can be anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes where I have whatever topic comes to mind, sharing some news, sharing some tips and strategies to help kick off your week. Tuesdays, I have a special guest and showcasing their knowledge, whether it be a book, whether it be just conversations in the areas of leadership, business, and again, human potential. And Thursdays are my day, where I get to share, topics that I've had in discussion with individuals that I think that I can shed a little bit more light and benefit a greater population. So I want to be able to share some of those discussions that I have with individuals with other people, because often other people have the same questions or want the same information. And what I've learned is not everybody's willing to ask because they have the fear of feeling foolish. So why not put out content where they can get it themselves? So the interviews are often on YouTube. They're on iTunes. They are available on Google Play, SoundCloud. So you can have that information available to you.
So it's available on the Android side, basically, because
Yes.
Apple's podcast, which they recently changed names, is only for Apple integrated technology. So just to let you guys know that Deb's podcast is on the Android side as well. Now, where can people find you, and where can people find the podcast, and how could they apply to become a guest if they choose to do so?
Well, you can go to my website if you're interested in being a guest on my show, and make sure that you're considering that you have something to share about leadership, business, and the human development part, because that's specifically the topics that we focus on. You can go to my website. There's a contact form, and fill that out and send it to me. My VA, Cheryl, or myself will be contacting you, and just to make sure that you're the right fit. And because it's really about, we deliver on our core values, which you can also find on my website, or you can just email me at Debra@DebraKasowski.com. I am available. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta in Canada, and right now it is actually snowing. So it's kind of interesting because it's the wrong month to be snowing, but you can get all four seasons in one day sometimes.
Jeez, it's snowing at the almost end of April. God,
Yeah.
for those who don't believe in global warming, there's a case for you right there. And as I said, we'll have Deb's info in the show notes, and her podcast is wonderful. As Deb said, I've been on her podcast, so if you want to hear a taste of her podcast, go back and listen to my interview with her, and you'll get a taste of it. And it's called The Millionaire Woman Show. On Tuesdays, she does guests. On Thursdays, she does minute lessons. And I believe I got that right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Deb. Did I get that right?
Well, I don't do the minute lessons anymore. That was a long time ago, but it is available as a podcast. And then the Mastery Mondays are on Mondays on Facebook Live. And I was just thinking about, they can also go to my website, because you can watch the video either on YouTube, but it's on my website, the interview like that you and I had, Win. Under podcasts, you can go through all the podcasts and have them available there as well.
Okay, so you're all over the place. And if people want to reach out to you, they can either tweet you or email you. What's the best tactile message here?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I have Debra Kasowsk E International, my business page. You can go over there. I'm on Twitter. Feel free to reach out and let us know how some of what I've shared with you in conversation with Win, or let Win know about some of the things that you've learned from this podcast. We always, as podcasters, we love to hear from you.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up. Always let me know what you guys want to know about, and I'll try and make that happen. I have a pretty powerful reach, and so I'll try and make that happen. But before I let Deb go, I'm actually going to have her turn the mic on me and ask me 2 to 3 questions that she is wanting to ask me.
Okay. Win, what is your most favorite book?
My most favorite book is, I guess I would have to say, the original book by Greg Mortensen, which is Three Cups of Tea, which is about building schools in Afghanistan. Since then, that book is a little controversial because of the way he did it, but that has to be one of my all-time favorite books.
Yeah, it's when that controversy comes up, it's very interesting. I read a book by Sally Armstrong, The Ascent of Women, and I actually got to meet her a year ago. And it was a challenging book to read, actually, because of some of the graphicness and some of the experiences that we live in North America, and we have, I would say we have it really good compared to, women and girls who want to get an education and they're not able to do so.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree.
What is the hardest part of your job that you face every day?
My job, as in my day job, or my job in being a podcaster?
Let's go with podcasting.
Let's go with podcasting. Those show notes. Show notes are my nemesis, because I have to get everything right before it goes public, otherwise the public gets back to me. And so show notes are the hardest part of podcasting, not getting behind mic and interviewing rock stars like you and giving interviews on your end. Those show notes are my nemesis.
I hear you. I could appreciate that very much. But I want to tell you how much of an inspiration you are and how grateful I am to be on your show today.
Well, thank you for saying that. I know we had you originally on Blog Talk Radio, but Blog Talk Radio didn't work for me because they don't update their system.
Oh, that's what happened.
Yep, and so that's why I had to switch over to a totally different podcasting host, and I'm so happy I did it.
So I do have one more question for you.
Go ahead.
What inspired you to start your podcast, Butterflies of Wisdom?
I wrote a book at age 23, and 2 weeks after the book came out, not only did it hit number one, and people started asking me, and not my friends and family, and people started asking me, how do you do all this amazing stuff with a disability? And I thought, okay, if I get on this thing that they call podcasting one more time and share my story, people are going to tune me out because they don't want to hear another story about cerebral palsy unless they're really curious. So I thought, well, why not bring other entrepreneurs that I really enjoy and that I really look up to, and bring them on and infuse my story with it.
Very powerful. I know you're making a huge difference.
Well, I hope so. Deb. If we could get over the fear of show notes, if we could get over the fear and the hump of show notes, then I would feel more confident in this podcast. But yeah, maybe eventually I'll get someone to help me with.
We got to leverage some tools there, Win. We got to leverage some tools. So, Dragon Speak is really great, and Fiverr for someone to transcribe it, or Upwork. Those are some extra tools that people can use to do the same. Yeah, well,
maybe I'll look into this in the next year or so, because, as I said, show notes are my nemesis.
Yeah, they can be time-consuming, that's for sure.
Oh, they can be time-consuming. But the podcasters that don't do show notes drives me nuts, because 90% is consumed. 90% of audio and podcasts are consumed mobilely. So it's a fine line, but we'll work on it.
Excellent. So
again, you guys, if you want to go find the Millionaire Woman Show. You can definitely find it. SoundCloud, iTunes, every place she's mentioned, every place Deb has mentioned. And again, we'll have Debra Kasowsk E's information in the show notes. And yes, I say show notes because I do show notes. And so how you can find the show notes is if you click on the podcast artwork, it will automatically flip over along with Deb's podcast too. Once a podcaster puts show notes in their podcast, they can people can click on the podcast artwork and then see the show notes. And my last plug for Deb, and I'm going to let her go to continue her amazing work, is please subscribe to both Butterflies of Wisdom, and please, if you can, leave a review. It doesn't have to be honestly. It doesn't have to be a 5-star review. It just has to be honest of what you like and don't like. And so that would help Deb and I get in higher in podcasting land. And so I hope you guys enjoy another fabulous episode of Butterflies of Wisdom. This podcast is sponsored by Go Kidder, K-I-T-D-E-R. What Kidder does is you compose tweets, they put the hashtag with it, and they've been truly a wonderful sponsor. And so that's Kellyanne Collins behind that magic. And then this podcast is also sponsored by Grace by Grit. Grace by Grit is a clothing line out of California. That's Katie Nolan out of San Diego, California, behind that magic. And if you want to hear both stories of how these women have done what they've done to help me, go back and listen to it. Now, unfortunately, iTunes only shows the first 100 episodes, so you might have to DM me and I'll send you a link. But I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode with Deb and I discussing the power of human potential. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.